Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Fancy Schmancy Wino. I'm James, not Jimmy. As you know, that's my brother. We're two guys with the same name, sharing the same wines, and sharing our thoughts with folks just like you. The last few weeks have dealt with a variety of wines, including a couple of great Merlots from Chateau Ste. Michelle and Mad Housewife. Last week, we enjoyed Joel Gott and the Chardonnay 2011 if you're me, 2014 if you're like my brother. A couple of great wines at a reasonable price point. And as we entered into the fall season, I thought it'd be fun to get into something that has a name that's more Halloween-like. And so we got the Apothic wine, specifically their new limited release Inferno blend. Now, if you're familiar with Apothic, they've got several, I think all blends. They've got a crush, a red, a white, and then this newest Inferno. The company itself, can't find a whole lot about it other than around 2005 this company was formed, hearkening back to Apothica, which I think was like 13th century, a mythical place where wine was blended and stored and aged. And so with that in mind, they've promoted their wines, promoted their blends, but don't say a lot about what's in them. But if you're like me, you've enjoyed the dark, you've enjoyed the red, and crush, not bad either. I've not had the white, maybe we'll have that down the road. But Inferno was appealing to us. If you've seen the commercial running, it's all over Facebook, YouTube, but this idea of something dark and sinister, I guess. See, this wine is aged for 60 days in oak barrels that have been used in the past for whiskey. And so they describe it as a wine with a whiskey soul. It's supposed to bring to mind or bring to our taste buds that black cherry or maple spice, maybe a little spicy on the palate. And so that just seemed like a fun way to go here, moving into the Halloween season. In fact, if you're like me in the Midwest, it's a rainy night. Clouds are here. It's cooler, and so a nice warm red just is intriguing to me. So why don't we jump right in, pour ourselves a glass, and see what kind of things we get out of it. Well, right off you notice it's a darker wine, not as inky as maybe a Zinfandel or maybe if you were with us a few weeks back we looked at Gnarly Head's Authentic Black, but certainly has a dark color to it. It's got some legs which may or may not indicate alcohol, but if you look at this one, 15.9% alcohol per volume, which that's up there in the high Zinfandel area, much higher than most reds or table wines. And so that fits with kind of how heavy it looks in the glass. Again, nice, maybe a dark ruby, nice and clear. Can't quite see through it, which is, again, an indicator. I think one of the other reviewers said perhaps a Petite Syrah in there, but let's go ahead and see what we've got on the nose. Yeah, I think you're certainly going to pick up on some maple, some spice. I was going to say some dark fruit. Thinking back when others have said a black cherry, that makes sense to me as well. It's got some heat on it, so some of that alcohol. There are wines out there with much less alcohol that have more of that coming off there. So that's kind of impressive that you're not just hit with that powerful alcohol heat smell. Yeah, I've had this bottle open for about a half an hour, kind of let it sit, get a little bit of air, and certainly a nice fragrant wine, but I'm really getting that maple and spice. Yeah, I think if you're trying this with us tonight, I think you probably agree with me. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Cheers. Yeah, some dark fruit, maybe dark cherry, black cherry, a little bit of maple. a subtle hint of a mocha or of the toasting of the barrel, but the spice is definitely, some wines refer to being fruit forward, and the first spice or first flavor that jumps out of me is a spice. And so let's make up a new one today. This one is a spice forward. A little warm on the way down. Again, for me, that seems normal for having that kind of high volume of alcohol at the 15.9%, but it's also reminiscent of a whiskey and has that spice on it. I think if you're not a big red fan, this doesn't have all those tannins, but there's still a lot of spice going on here. For me, I would say it's easy drinking, but terms like smooth or velvety might not be warranted here. It's a heavy wine. I mean, if I don't get the mouth sucking tannins, but it's full mouth, full body, setting heavy on the tongue. If you're gonna pair food with it, you're gonna want something that's big and bad. Talking with some coworkers today, thought about maybe pairing it with a nice rich pizza, but also thinking some barbecue for me. Certainly, any red wine's probably gonna go with a steak at this point in time. But if it's an overly light steak or if it's just not meaty enough, this is probably gonna overwhelm it. And same with a pizza. You're going to want something spicy that can push back on this a little bit. Now again, that's not for everybody. Some people don't want a nice red with a spicy mix, but I think that would go well. Maybe even like a honey barbecue, mix the sweet and spicy. If you've watched the last several episodes, we try to grade rather than points or stars that may or may not mean anything to anybody. We've gone with school grades. Most of what we've drank have been in the B's. Nothing I can remember being lower than say a B minus. This one I'm going to go with A minus. I'm trying to reserve A's for just that wow experience that you've got to get more bottles for everybody. And so I'm not going to go maybe as high as an A, but certainly an A minus. It's unique. It's not like any other wines I've had recently. It's got the cherries, the flavors that should be there, but that spice, that maple, really adds to it. And so, A minus. If you haven't tried it yet, go out and get it. As they describe, it's a limited release. I couldn't get it here in the Midwest for the first 2 weeks it was on the market. It says it retails for $19.99. Places I've seen it been anywhere from $11.50 to $13, $14, so maybe it depends on where you live, but I would go out and get it now. There have been some other wines from them that have been limited that either are gone quickly or take a while to get a hold of. So it's October, it's the fall season. Get yourself a nice bottle of Apothic Inferno. Enjoy that maple, that spice, and if you think about it, share your thoughts with us. I believe next week we're going to get into some local wines, a Washington wine for Jimmy, a Michigan wine for me out here in the Midwest. But hold on here, see what Jimmy has to say about it. And for James and a Fancy Schmancy Wino, cheers.
Hey there, Jimmy here. It's Jimmy, not James. James is at home, binge watching Murder, She Wrote. We're here today to drink this wine. As you know, it is the Apothic 2014 Inferno, or the 2014 Apothic Inferno, or whatever order you want to say it. Regardless, red wine that's been aged for 2 months in a whiskey barrel, a used whiskey barrel. I love whiskey, I love red wine. There's no reason to believe I wouldn't love them together. Let's get to drinking it. Assuming I can take the cork out. It is a synthetic cork. Hooray for that. And it is going in the glass. We are going to call that dark red, cherry red. I'm going to call it, say, dark cherry red. With big old legs. Which is not exactly surprising at a wine that's 15.9% alcohol. Let's give it a smell. Right off the bat, you get the dark fruit, like dark cherry. Again, this is like, we've had multiple wines now with that cherry flavor, but regardless, real for dark cherry. But what I like most is there's a big bouquet of maple in there. Does maple come in a bouquet? Whatever. It's there. Maple. Also, some spiciness, vanilla. Oh, vanilla, but it's kind of like that toasty, incensey kind of vanilla. Yeah, that's what I get. Giving it a taste. Because I nearly dump it on the table. Really rich cherry in there with maple, especially in the aftertaste. There's lots of maple and it lingers with kind of, if you've ever had any of the maple whiskeys. I used to, a while back, I used to drink, well, I don't even know if they make it anymore, but Macallan, I think it was called Macallan Amber. And it kind of left this hang in the back of your mouth that felt like it was like you just had some pancakes or something. It's not that strong, but it's definitely there. And it's really pleasant. And the spiciness is actual, like, spiciness along again with the vanilla and like allspice, I guess. I don't know what the other thing in there is, but it's not peppery. It's spicy. Real easygoing tannins for being, you know, aged in that kind of a barrel there. Yeah. But it's delicious, in my opinion. This may be the best wine I've had in at least a few weeks. That said, I can see right off, I mean, I can tell you right now that there are going to be plenty of people that don't like this at all. And that is, if you don't like whiskey, I would avoid this wine. It doesn't taste like a fortified wine or anything like that. It tastes like a red wine, but it's definitely got lots of soul from whiskey in there, and I bet that would be a turnoff if you weren't a fan. That said, yeah, for pairing, I would go for something pretty substantial. There's a barbecue joint not far from me that has brisket that's pretty tasty. I think I might pick some of that up and try it with some chopped brisket. I bet that would be quite tasty. But I think, you know, you should aim to have fun with this wine. They're not trying to recreate some Grand Cru Burgundy or something like that. This is a new school approach. And so we should embrace that and try it with new things, which is why I'm going to finish off this week's showing you what I'm going to pair it with, which is some Cheetos chicken fries from Burger King, because why not? Before I throw myself into the minefield here, I will say, for grade-wise on this thing, I'm going to give it an A. It's probably really only an A-, but I think just because I love the flavor of whiskey so much and it's married into a wine, I'm bumping it up to an A. So this is my first A wine of this blog. Good job, Apothic. Unfortunately, this is a small batch wine, so I guess I'll be buying a case or two so that I have some on hand. But anyway, without further ado, let's try this with some really unappetizing looking Cheetos chicken fries. I'm kind of nervous. Well, these aren't bad. I'm definitely not going to call them good, but they're not bad. How about with one? Not shabby. So, with that said, maybe buy the Cheetos fries or not, but pick up a bottle of Apothic Red if you like red wine and whiskey. Cheers. I'm real good. There's a little more.